Let's talk a little bit about expectations, especially as a IT professional. Now, I'm going to throw out something to you, a story. The story goes something like this, and I don't know, maybe I'm not going to do it 100% accurately, but you'll get the point. The young man goes to the doctor. He's got a spot on his arm, and the doctor looks at him very carefully, and he diagnoses it as basal cell skin cancer. What did the person hear, the young man hear? The only thing he heard was cancer. He didn't hear the doctor tell him it's highly treatable. It's the best kind of cancer to get if you're going to get cancer. You know, it's really not life-threatening or anything like that. Easily taken care of right there in his office. The young man didn't hear any of that. He heard cancer. Now, I'm going to guess if, like most of us, if a doctor tells us we have cancer, the first thing comes in our mind is going to be something like, oh my God, we're going to die. Or we have visions of no hair, not chemo, or what have you. Because the reason being, and rightfully so, the word cancer has a very negative connotation towards that word. So we have an expectation when we hear the word cancer, something bad is going to happen to somebody. In the world of technology, whether you're selling technology or you're working as an IT professional, whatever it is you're doing, your clients have expectations too. And it's very important to manage those expectations up front rather than to confront them after the fact. To give you some examples, let's say that you've been hired to install a network or set up a network for a company that just moved to a new office. Now, given the scenario, the owner says, well, when can you have this ready to go? And without really giving a lot of thought, because you've done this a million times, you say, we should have it done by next week. However, guess what the owner of the business is thinking in his head? Next week, Monday is next week. Therefore, the network will be ready to go on Monday. You, however, as the IT professional, are thinking, some might be Wednesday, might be Thursday, could be Friday. I don't really know, but it should be somewhere during the next week. So if you get it done on Wednesday, you've got a very angry client because their expectation was that it'd be done on Monday. The same thing can be done with the same philosophy as in with software. I know a lot of companies, there's a massive disconnect between the engineering side and the marketing side. Engineering says, gives the specs of what the product can do to marketing and says, under these conditions, it can do A, under this condition, it can do B, and it should be able to fully do C. Marketing, on the other hand, looks at the product and goes, oh, it can do A, it can do B, it can do C. Let's sell that. And, of course, what happens is people buy it and they're not using it under the conditions that engineering said it would under A, for example. And now in their mind, your product's defective when in fact engineering said it would only work under these conditions. So marketing has set an expectation that the product doesn't deliver on. And that is an important thing to keep in mind. So as an IT professional, whether you're installing servers or you're installing software, or you're cleaning up viruses, you're rolling out web servers, or whatever it is you're doing, putting in a voice over IP system, whatever it is you're doing, you have to be extremely careful to manage your client's expectations. Are they hearing you? Are you two really on the same page? And you might be surprised that they fully don't understand or appreciate exactly what you're trying to say. That's why you have to be very, very careful when you do things like give projected costs of a project or projected timelines, because there's a lot of variables. My wife pointed out to me the fact when I was in the field doing IT work on premise in the business world, that there were times that I would look at a client who asked me a question, and I would say, that shouldn't be a problem. Well, that won't be too hard to do. And in my mind, I honestly and sincerely believe that whatever little thing it was, when I heard what it was, wasn't that difficult to do. The reality a few times was that it didn't work. It wasn't easy as like I thought I did. I thought maybe just installing an executable, right, on a machine would be enough. That's what should work, but it didn't. And then it took longer, and I had an unhappy client. And so I learned to tell clients very carefully, very precisely, that uses the word provided everything goes on schedule, and all the stars aligned and the moons aligned and everything, then ideally it shouldn't be a very long job. But we have, there's always unforeseen circumstances. So to my best of my knowledge, it should take maybe 2 to 3 hours to do this task in a normal scenario. I try to be very explicit not to set unrealistic expectations, because your reputation depends on your ability to deliver on you doing what you say you're going to do in the time frame and the cost you say you're going to do in it. So some people call it leaving yourself wiggle room, whatever. There's a cliche in the business world that says to under-promise and over-deliver. And that's very, very good thought, but I would argue it's not always practical. Only thing you can promise is that you will get the job done, preferably within a certain time frame, and this is what it should cost, provided there is no surprises. This is one of the interesting things about the IT as an IT professional, is that you don't always know what the hidden gotchas are going to be whenever you're working on site. Maybe you'll find there are misconfigurations in the firewall that won't allow something to work properly. Maybe you'll find an issue with hardware that you weren't expecting. There's a lot of variables out there. Sometimes a framework won't install that should install. The list of things that can go wrong are endless when you're on site or even doing remote support. Maybe for some reason you can't even connect remotely to that server like you should be able to. There's something preventing that from happening. It's all about setting expectations is so very important, and I think it's a part that people miss. We get excited. See, when you get started, you're excited. You want to win business. You want to gain customers. And some people promise the moon in order to make that happen. But if you can't deliver, then you have failed, not just in a small way, but in a big, big way. I go back to the fact that you have to be very, very careful on how you preface what you're going to do with your customer, with your client, that they fully understand that in the world of technology, things aren't always cut and dry. Sometimes things simply won't work for no apparent or easy to discover reason. You, as an IT professional, may have to get on the phone with a manufacturer to troubleshoot something. There may even be something the developer can't figure out why it's not working. You run into all these scenarios. You've done your thing correctly, right? You've done it exactly by the book, only to find it simply doesn't work, and no one can figure out why exactly that is, right? But the customer already has an expectation because you told them, yeah, no problem, should be able to set that up for you. No problem. It's an hour to do it. But you've been on the phone for 4 hours with Dell or HP or Microsoft or whoever because it didn't work. For no rhyme or reason, you can't figure it out. Now your customer's looking at you like, oh my goodness, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. When in reality, no one could do anything any better at all. So you run into that, and of course into your estimates. And that's always kind of I won't say it's an art form. It takes a lot of experience working in various scenarios to get a really good handle on how much time a project's going to take, what your time and materials are going to be to do a proper estimate. But remember, an estimate is only an estimate based on a best case scenario, not a worst case scenario, typically. And of course, you're trying to win business and be competitive, but you have to make things very clear to have a realistic expectation that, hey, this estimate could be quite a bit higher if the stars don't align and the planets don't come into position. You know what the fixed cost of things, such as a server, is going to be, or client access licenses to Windows Server. You understand those fixed costs, but it's the labor that can really get you crazy. Maybe you couldn't get to those network drops for some reason. The wall was up there in the attic or whatever, and you couldn't get through, whatever the reason being. So I'm urging you as an IT professional to think very carefully about what you say to a client, how you say it, and make sure they understand it. I actually try to get people to repeat back what I told them to make sure we're on the same page. And you certainly want them to walk away with the understanding that given everything going just right, this would be a best case scenario. It could actually cost more or take longer, and it wouldn't be your fault. So yeah, I just thought I would share that with you.